Welcome to the Thursday Checkdown. It's our mission at the sports affiliation to include our audience. Today might be a little more difficult because Twitter Spaces isn't working. So if we can't, we won't. But if we can, we will try to work the audience in. Anyway, as always, our goal is to talk football and have fun. And we're going to do that because if it's not fun, why bother? Tonight, we're talking about roster surprises, impact fantasy teams, questions heading into the regular season, and food. And when I talk about food, I'm very serious about food because now you can see my body. I have a large body, and that gets that way from food. So, what is your favorite tailgating fare? And you get extra points for creativity. Our special guest tonight is Joe Bond of the Fantasy Six Pack. Joe, why don't you tell the viewers who you are, where they can find your work?
Unmuting would be good. So obviously I'm Joe Bond. Thank you for having me, guys. This should be a blast. So I run fantasy6pack.net. Been doing this for about 13 years total. We do football, baseball, basketball, hockey, golf, DFS. We do it all. Obviously football is the big thing right now. So we we've got award-winning rankings over there. You can see our awards. We got a couple of the Fantasy Pros badges and stuff like that over the last few years. We've got cheat sheets, projections. We've got Discord. So jump on over there and become an all-access member. Use promo code F6P NFL, 15% off just in time for the season. So good stuff.
Okay, joining me tonight, Mace was with us, but he had to dash. So we've got JC doing double duty. He's our producer, and he's going to be our Mace, although he may not answer some of the questions because we didn't have him prepared. But Iggy is going to lead the way, and I think Iggy's probably going to throw in some IDP too because he tends to like that stuff. Definitely throw in some Green Bay Packers stuff. I'm sure of that. Topic one, guys. Final cuts for Tuesday. Any big surprises? Either someone who was or wasn't cut. Now, I know there's a lot of them, but I'm a Detroit fan, so I'm going to stick with my hometown team that's not at home for me because I'm in Texas. But the guy that surprised me was Dylan Drummond. He's a UDFA, but, man, this guy was tearing it up in the preseason. Only 9 passes for 87 yards. But you have to listen to what the coaches were saying about him. It's just Dan Campbell said, we see it. He makes plays every day. And at training camp, he's talking about he really mentally can play all of the positions. He competes on special teams, and I would say he's hard to ignore. He's just hard to ignore. He's continuing to climb up the depth chart. I thought he was at 5, actually. So he's doing exactly what a guy like him has to do. He's doing everything right. Now, that said, I do believe he may have been signed today. I've been out of pocket today, but I believe they're going to put him on their practice squad. It really surprised me. Joe, what are you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, there wasn't a whole lot of kind of like what is going on drops to me. The one that sort of made me go, there was 2. They both involved quarterbacks. Arizona cutting Colt McCoy. I mean, this just to me screams that the tank is on, like, hard in Arizona. Like Joshua Dobbs or Clayton Tune. Nope, I want none of that. I don't know what's going on over there.
I actually asked JC to get a soundboard because I knew you were going to say that, and I wanted him to play Herm Edwards saying, "You play to win the game."
Yeah. And then the Patriots. Now, I think they've since signed a backup, but when I wrote down the notes, they cut both Bailey Zappi and Malik Cunningham. So they left Mac Jones is the only quarterback on the roster. I'm like, okay. I mean, maybe sign one first before you cut your other quarterbacks. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. And then just last thing I want to add in. Why were there so many kickers being traded? What is going on? I've never before ever.
Detroit re-signed Bagley.
Yeah, Bagley. Yeah.
Yeah, they re-signed him, even though they've got Robbie Patterson and they had another kid in camp with them the whole time.
Yeah, it's so weird. I mean, there was a bunch of like 7th round picks. I think the one kicker got traded for a 5th rounder. It's like you got robbed. But it's like I don't get it. Like these kickers were probably getting cut. Just go get them. But whatever.
Well, the teams that cut down to the bare minimum, and just so you guys know, I'm expanding beyond what the script says because I don't know if we're going to have an audience. So I'm trying to extend a little bit. Detroit cut all but 3 running backs. They had David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, who we know are the co-starters, but they kept a fullback. They don't have a backup to Gibbs or Montgomery. And I know. And Joe, I think I sent you this question. They got to sign somebody else, don't they?
I don't remember seeing that question, so apologize. I mean, you would think, I don't know, like it is sort of head scratching, like what some of these teams do. They kind of cut their depth. At some point, they got to go out and they're going to find somebody, just sitting on the couch, because injuries are going to happen, especially to that position, right?
Yeah. Sorry, Iggy, it's your turn. I know.
No, it's all good. No, that was fine. I like the natural flow of talks as well. And yeah, it seems odd with the quarterback, Joe. I just want to say because the NFL put a new rule in where you can roster and suit out a 3rd string quarterback, and it's not a penalty to your 53-man roster. So
I forgot about that. Good call.
Yeah. So I thought that was real bizarre by New England as well. We know what's going on in Arizona. I wanted to say that Mace, he was talking about Nicholas Morrow. I thought that was a surprise as well. Just looking at the linebackers for Philadelphia. But Philadelphia picked up somebody, and that might have been the reason they cut Morrow, is because they went out and got a guy that I've been really high on living in Colorado, and that's Albert. Okay, I'm going to butcher the last name, Ukuwamba, and I just call him Albert O from Denver. He's really athletic, and he knew he was going to get cut. So if you watch that last preseason game, I think he had 8 of the first 10 catches or something like that. And Jared Stidham was just throwing at him as much as possible. They lit it up, had a very exciting first half because he knew he was about to get cut. And he's a very athletic tight end. They went with Trotman at Denver. But let me tell you who picked him up, Philadelphia. And not only they knew he was about to hit the waivers, they offered Denver a 7th round so that he wouldn't hit the waivers. Very smart by Philadelphia. Dallas Goedert hasn't played a full season since his rookie year. He hasn't started more than 12 games in 5 years. So I think they've got a great plan. Jalen Hurts loves throwing to the tight ends. He loves throwing those intermediate routes down the field. So I think that this is a good move. And in my best ball, if I've been taking a good tight end early, with my very last pick, I've been drafting Albert O because I think there's a lot of potential there for him in this offense. So
Iggy, I got to ask you, with all the tight end premium leagues nowadays, doesn't a good tight end make an excellent flex play?
Yeah, exactly. If he can go out there and average 5 or 6, or any tight end can go out there and average you 5 or 6 catches, 50 yards, like that's going to put them above certain receivers because you're getting a 2.5, 3-point advantage on top of the yardage. So it's like they've exceeded what they needed to do with that level. So I would say yes, Greg.
Yeah, I think that Albert O, I mean, we saw what Albert O was last year before he got hurt. And, and the year before that, even before he got hurt, right? Like he is somebody that's very, very talented. And he's got hands. It's just the injury stuff. That's the only thing we worry about. But
also NFL Network has a morning show. It's a Good Morning NFL or something like that. And the hosts on that have been really speaking up Greg Dulcich. So I got to imagine right now he's the only real tight end in Denver. If Russell Wilson steps up, Dulcich has got to be screaming up people's rankings.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I was a big Dulcich fan last year. He had a really big game. I can't remember who it was against, but he actually would have had a touchdown that game. He went down on the 1-yard line. So, I mean, he had 70 yards receiving that game, and he had a big bomb play, and then he just, he went down on the 1. But, yeah, I like Dulcich. He's on the up for me, too. It just really depends. Like, I think we talked about it the other night, who we draft from this team. And I said I'm kind of staying away from the Broncos unless you want to get Dulcich late. I think that's a good risk. I mean, I'm unsure about it, but I think that the talent's there. If anybody's going to get fed, it might be him.
I was able to snag him and Scott Fish, which is tight end premium. So he's my second tight end. I've got Kittle and him. So that was great.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, I took Kelsey.
Yeah. I've been hearing stuff about Troutman getting a lot of work too. So I think they want to get both those guys involved, but Dulcich is the guy.
Yeah.
I think so too.
So JC, do you want to talk about anybody, or do you want to see if there's
I'll hop in a little bit. I think it's just more of team wasting money. The Vikings, they tend to do it all the time. Talked about, them. I mean, before they decided they want to drop a couple first rounders, they go out and pick up these first rounders. N'Keal Harry, who was a first round pick, and also Jalen Reagor, who was a first round pick, who was on our team. Both of them gone off our team already. Now they brought in what was it? Mike Gesicki. He probably won't be on the team very long. It's just I feel like the Vikings like to waste him a lot of money.
I like Gesicki. I thought he was very good in Miami.
They brought in Myles Gaskin, not Gesicki.
Oh yeah, Gesicki's with the Patriots,
Sorry,
right?
I was going to say I like.
He's like my dark horse tight end this year.
Not tight end, running back.
I like him. Okay, so were there any questions in the crowd other than Melissa complaining about Iggy sniping her?
If anybody want to hop in, just if anybody wants to hop in and ask any questions or say anything,
make a comment. Yeah,
about we're gonna do what we can to get y'all involved this way. Since space is kind of shut down for us today. But if you get in here, we'll pop your question up here and we'll talk a little bit about it.
And we'll talk about your team. If you guys have any questions in the audience that you just want answered by, I don't believe there are any pros really, but we're people that do take it seriously. And so if you want us to answer, just ask a question. We'll answer it. I do see Stephen Hulick says Cup injury. Are you worried? I've been worried about Cooper Kupp for 2 years. The guy can't stay healthy. And I literally love Matt Stafford because he won Detroit a game that got us to the playoffs. And we don't go to the playoffs very often. He did it with a dislocated shoulder. I believe in his throwing arm. Dislocated. He couldn't raise his hand. So couldn't raise his arm above his shoulder because it was dislocated. So I love Stafford, but he's not a spring chicken anymore. Joe, what do you think about Cooper Kupp?
Yeah, I've been high on him all off season. Was hoping the hamstring happened early enough that he was going to be able to, play week 1, but now this setback really has me wondering. And I had him as the wide receiver 3. I haven't adjusted my rankings yet because the news came out like an hour and a half ago and making dinner, getting ready for this show. But I'm thinking he'll probably drop to and maybe it's still a little too optimistic, like the Devontae Adams range. So beginning second roundish. And it's all going to be how much risk do you want? We know when he's on the field, he is legit one of the best receivers on. He was on pace to be the wide receiver 1 last year until he got hurt.
Okay, so
everybody forgets that.
I was down in the San Antonio area all day meeting family friends that flew in from California for lunch. So I didn't see the news. Please enlighten me.
He just had a setback with his hamstring, is what
how
Sean
bad?
McVay's saying. They didn't say, but now clearly week 1 is in question. Okay.
Well, Kamara's going to miss 3 weeks. My guy, Jonathan Taylor, is going to miss at least 4. When they're that good, it's still worth it. You don't drop him.
No.
If you've got an injured reserve, you put him on injured reserve.
Yeah, they probably. I don't know if they'll be on injured. I don't know if couple.
No, I mean fantasy injured.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, fantasy injured.
Out player. Yeah, put him on there. Utilize those roster spots. It's important.
Okay.
I'll tell you, Matt Stafford's not going to forget Puka Nacua. How do you say his last name? Yeah,
I actually drafted him. I drafted him because I got a taxi squad. I put him on.
I got a lot of hate for that Puka pick. A lot of hate.
Oh, you wanted him?
Don't ask me. He was there in the last. What we were doing underdog. He was there in the second to last round. I'm like, I'll take that. Boop.
It was a late round flyer.
Well, hey, you can't sleep on the picks. I'm sorry. Topic 2, guys. Division winners are nice. Everybody likes their team to win the division, but I care more about fantasy scoring because I'm a fantasy guy. So I want each of us to name 2 teams, one from the NFC, one from the AFC, who are going to be fantasy bonanzas for owners. In other words, are they going to have multiple wide receivers you can draft? Are they going to have multiple running backs? My Lions. I really like my Lions for fantasy purposes this year. They're going to have 2 legitimate top 24 running backs. I truly believe that. They're going to have a tight end that's going to be top 12, I believe. And they're going to have now it's going to be bottom of the top 12 because he is a rookie. And I believe when Jameson Williams comes back, I think Marvin Jones is going to surprise people. But I'm on Ross St. Brown as a top 5-6 wide receiver. So I love my Lions. But let's go to the AFC. I'm looking at Jacksonville. Lawrence, Kirk, and Ingram, they're all known commodities. Ridley is the question mark for me, and I think he's going too early in drafts, personally. He hadn't played in 2 years. I think he's got the talent to be a superstar, but he's just going a little too early for me. I'd rather have Kirk where he's going because I know they've got the consistency. The guy that's surprising me that he's not really being loved on is Travis Etienne. I love Etienne. I really think that people forget that he played last year with a Liz Frank injury, right? I mean, he was erratic, but I expect him, to be good. And I think Tank Bigsby is going to offer some RB2, RB3 flex type play promise this year. On the NFC, yes, I talked about my Lions, but I think the Commanders, I keep wanting to say Redskins, sorry, provide similar capabilities. They got 2 running backs that are draftable. I love Sam Howell. I think you get him late and you're going to be very happy. You get him in a dynasty league, you're going to be even happier. And I like their receivers. They've got 2 or 3 legitimate receivers. I'm not as sold on their tight end, but Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin are definitely draftable in any league. So, Joe, let's go to your side.
Yeah, so I kind of took this as like the teams who will be more surprising for fantasy purposes. And AFC, I'm going with the Patriots. I know we all know Ramondre Stevenson. Even though Zeke is there, I think Stevenson's still going to be a baller. He did it last year, even with Harris there. I mean, the guy's just ridiculously good. I do like Zeke, though. Zeke, I don't think he's totally washed. He's going to have a role there, right? Even if it's just kind of short yardage, red zone type of stuff, like he's going to have some weeks where he's going to be very, very useful. I'm also higher on Juju than most. I mean, who else is Mac Jones throwing to there? Like, I mean, this guy is going to have a crazy amount of targets this year. Yes, it's not Pat Mahomes anymore, but Pat Mahomes spread that ball around so much. That's not what Mac Jones is going to do. Mac Jones is going to get this ball to Juju. And like I said earlier, my kind of dark horse tight end who you can get for free. Man, my son just yelled. I don't know if you guys heard that. It's bedtime. Mike Gesicki. Look, he's leaving the Miami offense, which he was just not a good fit for once the new coaching staff came in. We know this guy can do it. We've seen it before. Look, Belichick likes to use tight ends. They're going to have 2 good ones there now. And so Gesicki, I think, is going to take more of the pass catching role there. And he's going to be somebody who is going to get picked up off of waivers pretty quickly and be a very popular streaming tight end pick. NFC, I'm going Carolina. I know the rookie quarterback, but don't sleep on Miles Sanders. He averaged the most. I forget the stat now. He averaged the most yards per attempt or touch last year for a running back or something like that. I forget exactly what it was. I should have written it down. Apologize for that. But I mean, come on, it's Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard and Raheem Blackshear. I mean, this is going to be Miles Sanders a lot. Don't sleep on Adam Thielen. The guy is just a really good crisp route runner, very professional receiver. He's going to help out Bryce Young a lot. And, DJ Shark, I've always been a fan. The dude can just stay healthy. I think he's just a top-notch receiver. So, yeah, the rookie quarterback is going to, probably lower the ceiling a little bit of this offense. But, Bryce Young was the number one pick for a reason. So I think he's going to be the man.
Hey, Farquan just asked, in standard scoring leagues, when would you draft Travis Kelce? And I'm assuming by standard he means no point per reception, no half point per reception, and I would say probably right around wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6, because he basically, that's where he fits in the NFL, is around wide receiver 5 or 6. So
yeah, so he's asking. So he's asking, when would you start to target tight ends other than Kelce? So for me, in a standard league where you're not getting points per reception at all, I mean, you kind of drop the running backs, or you kind of drop the receivers and the tight ends in general in those formats just slightly. I haven't played in any standard leagues in a long time, so it's hard for me to kind of wrap my head around it. But Andrews and Hawk are usually going around. I've seen as early as like late second in PPR formats, but it's usually like third, fourth. So maybe drop it like another roundish, and kind of boost the running backs up a little bit more, because those are the guys that are going to carry you. And quarterbacks, actually. Quarterbacks get a little bit of a boost in standard leagues.
Okay. Sorry about that, Iggy. It's your turn.
No, and I just want to say last week my favorite picks in our 11th and 12th round picks. You can get Tyler Higbee. You can backdoor that with Cole Kmet. And then you got 2 top 10 tight ends from last year, and you got them in the 11th and 12th round. Well, I originally had New York for my answers, but I'll stick with the Giants. But I'm going to change up my AFC pick live right here. Yeah, I believe in the Giants. You know how I am, Greg. I believe in coaching. I believe in coordinators. I think these things have a large effect on our fantasy football teams, and it goes unnoticed. And you got Wing Martindale, you got Brian Daboll over there. They're going to be bringing it, man. From an IDP perspective, I'm big on Hodgins. Hodgins carried me to a championship. I think he's going to fit well in that system. I believe in Daniel Jones. I believe in Barkley. I believe Waller will be okay. I think he's a little bit overpriced, but I think he's going to be still a good tight end. And you got Paris Campbell. You got the rookie height. You'll have Robinson coming off his injury about midway through the season. So there's a lot of potential there for very cheap. Outside of Barkley, you can get all the rest of those guys in the 10th round and beyond. And that, to me, is value. That's what I want. I'll take a chance on Brian Daboll's offense with those NFC guys. Defensively, you got Dexter Lawrence. You got Leonard Williams. You got Bobby O'Keefe over there. So there's a lot of
Bobby O'Keefe, when I see his name, I just remember when they were practicing with the Lions, and Jahmyr Gibbs made him look like a child.
Yeah, hey, that's good for IDP, Greg. You want to be targeted in the pass game if you got an IDP, because that means you get more tackles. So to validate Greg's point, I think he's going to get burnt in coverage some, and he's going to get tackles, because that's what happened to him at the Colts. But we like that as a linebacker in IDP. I'm going to pivot my answer from the Jets, and go to Pittsburgh with Mace not here, because that's a team I'm so high on. I love Kenny Pickett. I think he was evaluated quite well by the Steelers. And only quarterback taken. And then everything we've seen from camp from Pickens has made us forget all about Deontay Johnson, Allen Robinson being the third wide receiver, Pat Freiermuth being an elite tight end. And then, of course, Greg, our guy Najee, probably my most drafted player. We got an article over at the Sports Affiliation written by our guy Greg there telling you his thoughts on Najee, echoing my sentiment as well. Big boy coming down the middle, Steelers football. Let's be serious here. They're going to want to run it with that guy. And then defensively, you got some of my favorites. Alex Highsmith is my guy this year. They paid him to be the man. He's one of the highest paid defensive ends / linebackers in the NFL. You got TJ Watt on the other side. You got Cole Holcomb in the middle. You got Mika Fitzpatrick in the back end. You've got Cameron Hayward plugging up the middle. They just signed Patrick Peterson, and they just picked up Desmond King. Talk about players that got dropped from the Houston Texans joining Patrick Peterson. That is a veteran team. That is a team loaded with fantasy players. You almost can't go wrong. The only team I like better than Pittsburgh for fantasy purposes is Jacksonville.
Hey, talking about Highsmith, is he a linebacker, a defensive end, or an edge in IDP scoring.
That depends on your league settings. If you play with somebody like Gary Davenport, that's going to be pushing the 11-man front, leading the way in the IDP field. He's a defensive end. If you're playing in my Fantasy Football Sevens charity league with 16 teams, he's got the dual status, linebacker / defensive end. So you can put him on there, gives you some flexibility. All right, so that depends on the platform, Greg, to answer that question. But if you can get him as a defensive end, Lord have mercy, that's a big plus. So.
JC, do you have anybody you want to stand out?
Well, I'd probably say my Vikings, just because I know they're going to be an air raid offense. You know, there's going to be a lot of people that you can depend on. T.J. Hawkinson for one. I mean, he could easily be the tight end one this year. Oh, you think he's got fumble hands? I mean,
he did in Detroit.
Yeah, not in Minnesota. He was pretty high targeted in Minnesota, second highest targeted tight ends after he left, Detroit. So maybe
10 games, buddy.
Hawk
you
fan.
had 10 games with him.
Yeah.
I'm a big Hawk fan this year.
Maybe it was just the weather up in Detroit where he couldn't catch the ball.
You guys cut my boy, Dwayne McBride.
Yeah, I know. I was kind of sad about that, Dwayne McBride. But, Ty Chandler got the number 2 spot. So, I mean, maybe he's going to be that guy that subs in. But I still think that they bring someone in. I mean, you already know that I'm not high on Madison. But if you're looking for wide receivers or somebody that's going to be in PPR leagues, I mean, I think Jordan Addison kind of later you can get him as your wide receiver 3 or even 4. Yeah. And be very, very happy. I mean, him and JJ are going to be a crazy duo this year. And then I guess, in the AFC, I might have to just go Chargers because that's the same thing. The wide receiver room is ridiculous. I mean, Keenan Allen still, even with the age, he's still one of the best route runners in the NFL. He's going to be very hard to stop. Justin Herbert, I got him as my QB4, I believe, this year, which is, for me, last year I was very, very off of him last year. And this year, I think I'm excited about what they're going to be doing this year. And Eckler, he's somebody that you always have to root for because he's already out there talking about him. He's going to be out there making sure that you get fantasy points because he always tries to draft himself, so he makes sure that he's going to be scoring points. So that's definitely somebody that you
got to love an NFL player that not only acknowledges the fantasy game, but actually plays it.
Yep. Yeah, he's on Sirius XM with Fabiano a lot, talking fantasy football, not talking Chargers. He's talking fantasy football. And he did that, I think, once a week last year. So hard not
I just
to
love how that's allowed, but these guys can't place bets. It's literally the same thing.
I think they do it for charity, though.
It's kind of the same thing.
They do charity.
I get it, but I don't know. As long as you're betting on yourself, right? Okay.
I guess.
Well,
can't even do that.
I don't play money leagues. I told Iggy fooled me. First of all, he didn't tell me his league was IDP, got me to commit to it, and then he breaks this out. Oh, there's a $30 entry fee, and first place gets $200, and second place gets $60. I don't take money, so if I win, I'm taking $30 for next year's fees, and the rest of it, Iggy's keeping. You talk about a scam, that boy.
It's going to charity. Come on now.
I don't care. I'm just happy to play. I like to compete.
I'm keeping the money, so my compassion only goes so far, you could say.
That's fine. Hey, JC, was there anything in the chat that I missed?
Looks like we got about 50 comments. Keep them rolling in, everybody.
Yeah, we got a bunch of comments here. Fantasy Six Pack hopped in real quick. He's talking about, Yeah, I know.
I'm the one chiming in.
So we got a bunch of people chiming in here talking about a bunch of random stuff that to keep up with our conversation. Nothing really.
Was there anybody that mentioned a team that they're high on?
Oh, I know that Evan wanted you to answer this. Better fantasy year. Hodgins or Paris?
Paris Campbell or Hodgins? I'm going to say Hodgins. I think he's lined up as the wide receiver 1 in that offense. He seemed to have great rhythm with Daniel Jones. Like I said, carried me to the playoffs. Paris Campbell always gets our hopes up and kind of mediocrely drops them down. But I think for the price on both of them, you're getting Hodges in round 150-something. You're getting Paris Campbell at about 205, 206. So I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them. You can always drop them off.
Your league has 200 rounds?
What, 200? Pick 200.
You mean pick 206.
Overall ADP. It's 154 and 206.
Now, I have to call him on that when he does that. Topic 3. All right. The preseason is behind us. Questions still abound like they do every year. Okay. So, what's your biggest concern heading into the regular season? Well, for me, it's been answered. JT was my biggest concern. Jonathan Taylor, I drafted him at the end of the second round in my Beat a Hall of Famer league. I took James Cook, too. Right now, I'm just carrying Jonathan Taylor until he plays and hope that in week 5 he leads me to the championship from 5 on. If I can go 2-2 in the 4 weeks that he's not there, I really thought that they would trade him. I really did. I never thought that Indianapolis would demand Jalen Waddle for Jonathan Taylor. That is just so ludicrous of an ask. Not only Jalen Waddle, but Jalen Waddle plus picks. It's insane. So to me, JT, what's going to happen at the end of week 4? Is he going to be reinstated? Now, I've heard somebody say that they could just hold him out the whole year. I don't think so. I think that if Indianapolis held out Jonathan Taylor for the whole year so that he didn't accrue a year, the Players Association would scream. The entire Colts locker room would not trust management ever again. And getting a free agent, you talk about expensive. If I'm going to that team, they better pay me up front and guarantee it all.
Yep.
So, Joe, I know you got to have something you're concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, if I kind of went more just straight NFL here, not fantasy. And I mean, is the NFC South going to have a team with a winning record? Let's be real. It's bad down there.
Saints.
The Saints, I guess, have the best shot. Yeah, I wrote that down. I mean, but even that's going to be close. Like, they're not a great team.
I like
either.
Carr. I like the receivers, and I love Jamal Williams. I think he's really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to have their struggles too. You know, they might run through the rest of the NFC South, so that's going to help.
Well, what I don't know, and Iggy can answer this, is how's their defense?
It's old. They got Tyrann Mathieu. They got Demario Davis. They got Cameron Jordan. Like, all those guys are, I think, 10 years. Maybe Tyrann Matthew's at 8, 9.
Yeah.
But they're old. But, this could be like the last push of the old guys, to get there, that the opportunity's there. If they can win and at least get the 2nd seed, they probably would get two home games at the Dome, which I don't care what anybody says. That's still an advantage. Playing in New Orleans is tough. It's always been tough. Even when they weren't good, it was tough playing there. So they could have that, but I think the Falcons are a little bit underrated. I like Arthur Smith, I think, a little bit more than most people, but that's a good defense over there and a good offensive line in Atlanta, and that can take you a long way too. So yeah,
I love the landing spot for Bijan. I mean, it was great because I had the 101 in my dynasty league, so I was like, oh, this is perfect. So great for that, but that was a crazy.
Is he being overdrafted in redraft leagues? I say yes. What do you say, Joe?
Yes, I've got him as a first round grade for fantasy, but I've seen him, and it just happened last night in a league I was in. He went ahead of guys like Barkley. He went ahead of Tyreek Hill. He went with like the 5th or 6th pick, and I was like, whoa. Okay, that's a bit rich for me. Like, look, we know he's awesome, he's talented, but sometimes it just doesn't click yet. Like, it takes a minute. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Iggy, what are you concerned with?
Well, let me ask y'all this to start it. Do y'all believe in a Super Bowl hangover? Do you believe that's a real thing?
No.
Joe, do you think it's real or no?
Depends on the mentality of the team. I think most teams can get over it if they're talented enough, but
I think that there's a lot more interest in beating Super Bowl teams. I think that the opponents get up for the Super Bowl matchup more than they would if you hadn't won the Super Bowl. But a hangover I don't think the players look past their opponents. I don't.
Yeah, I think you're right. It does depend on the mentality and how much of that group was there to experience it. Like the Bills, when they went to 4, you could kind of see their last Super Bowl, just all that energy just drain out of them from going for so many seasons. But what I'm looking at is the Philadelphia Eagles, because I am into coaching, and they lost their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator, and there's a lot of changes on that defense that are taking place. I don't know that they quite have it figured out yet, replacing some of those veterans, plugging in a lot of these young guys in the secondary. So I want to see who the Eagles will be from a fantasy perspective. We do expect Jalen Hurts to do well. We do expect A.J. Brown to do well. We do expect Devontae Smith to do well. Once you leave those 3, everything to me kind of becomes a mystery. How much time will Swift get? How much time will Penny get? Who are the linebackers that are going to step up for them this season? Will the injury to just his finger, Hassan Reddick, will that affect them? Because he's kind of their best defensive player now. Those are some big questions fantasy-wise for me. And if they're not playing as good a defense as they did last year, it could help their offensive production, believe it or not. A.J. Brown could have 120 catches or something this year, But I'm really interested to see how it is. I've got a lot of Smith shares. I had a lot of Swift shares as to begin. His ADP's kind of been climbing a little, so I've laid off of him. But outside of that, I don't know who they're going to be. And I think if you have them on your fantasy team, have a backup plan. That's all I'm saying.
Just remember, every year he misses 3 to 4 games. DeAndre, every year, 3 to 4 games.
I don't talk bad about him, but I just feel like the Eagles traded for him. And in the best ball format, I draft him. In a redraft, that's going to be hard for me to make that sell and commit to that guy being my running back. But in best ball, hey, if you give me 20-point week here and there, I love it. So,
yeah. JC, you got any concerns?
Oh, a lot of concerns. I guess I got 2. I think the Breece Hall, that's one for me. I mean, I only have him in a couple leagues, but in Scott Fishbowl having him there, I mean, I have him as my RB3, which isn't terrible. I mean, if he plays, he plays, but I just don't see him playing as much as we think he's going to, because if they're going to put $8 million+ into a running back like Dalvin Cook to come in, yep. I mean, I think they're going to, if they're smart, and if they went like the, Rodgers is said he's going to stay for more than this year, more than next year, maybe even longer than that. He's been talking about that. So why wouldn't they want to keep their young, strong, healthy running back that's super talented, or not healthy, sorry, get him healthy, and then use this old running back that we know is very talented to keep that momentum going, right? I still think that I've got the Jets going to the Super Bowl, so y'all might think I'm crazy. Is it plus 1,800? I'm going to take it. Why not? Let's go throw a bet on it.
Can you believe that Dalvin Cook is making twice as much as Jonathan Taylor, and Josh Jacobs is making 3 times as much as Taylor?
Yeah, they got to restructure that rookie contract for running backs and get their money front end loaded. That's the only way we're going to solve this issue. But I feel bad for JT, but he's still way wealthier than I am.
Okay, we're humming right along. I wish we could bring callers on, but we can't.
So, if you want to get some comments,
sure, grab some comments.
So Fantasy Fish said he said Saints have one of the easiest schedules. They should have a positive record to be bounced and be bounced in the first round. He said
that's coming from a Saints fan. He's a Saints fan.
Hey, they might be bounced. People worry a lot about Carr, but I think Carr's an upgrade at quarterback for him, and I really like Chris Olave. And this is a Michigan guy saying good things about Chris Olave, which don't hold your breath. That doesn't happen very often. But that's another thing I'm really looking forward to. Yeah, I know Jim Harbaugh's not going to be coaching this weekend or next weekend or the weekend after, but Michigan never plays anybody strong the first 3 weeks, so we should still win big. I'm looking forward to seeing Michigan win.
That'd be good for the Big Ten and for football for them to get back to the playoffs for sure. That's a national powerhouse.
No,
they got to rebrand the Big 18
playoff
eventually.
It would be good if they could win a playoff game.
Well, it says, who do you reduce if you give the RBs money? I don't think that they have to reduce it. I've said
quarterbacks. $50 million a year for a quarterback? I'm sorry.
Well, what they've done to the QB market is pretty crazy. I've said this for about 7-8 years now. I give Vic Ketchman credit for it. Once they put the premium on the quarterback, they put the premium on the defensive end. So now defensive ends are getting paid like crazy. And because they've done that, you have to put this premium on the tight end. Tight ends are making sometimes 2.5 times more than running backs. And
offensive tackle, left tackle gets paid a lot.
Well, offensive tackles have always been paid pretty decent, I think. That's always been a pretty coveted position for linemen. But like the premium on tight end is now forcing the premium on this position we don't have named, which is a hybrid safety linebacker role. Like look at your Isaiah, like that's where the money's going to go, and that's just how it is. And unfortunately, we're losing running backs, and I don't think that they have to just increase the salary cap or make it work. The NFL
or make every single contract in the NFL a contract that has incentives.
Yeah,
you give a base salary by position. And then everything is based on incentives. If you lead the league in rushing, you get paid well. If you don't lead the league in rushing, you're not going to get a whole lot more than what your base salary is. Do that for every position. Every position has stats these days. Centers, guards, there's grading for the offensive line that's individual and team.
Yeah.
You grade them. If you make everything incentive based, then when you have, forgive me, Deshaun Watson making $50 million a year and playing like a rookie, he doesn't make $50 million a year that year. But players don't like incentives because then they have to actually perform.
Hey, I'm old enough to still remember when Barry bought his linemen all those nice watches when he hit that 2K mark. The team didn't do it. Barry had to do it, but that I think that was like the incentive for all them to do well as well.
Yeah, Barry's a class act. Hey guys, the most important topic of tonight, we're talking food. It's time to address that too, because we really haven't done any segment like this in our show's short history. So basically, what's your favorite tailgating fare? Now, for me, I think tickets are kind of expensive, and hell, parking at the stadium's not cheap. So I save my money and fuel up on pizza and Mountain Dew. I do the dew on game day because game day for me starts early and lasts really late because I'm watching all of the games. So, and I got a big screen. I got a 65-inch TV at home. So why wouldn't I watch it at home? Especially, I grew up in Michigan. Who wants to go to the stadium in December? When it's snowing or freezing rain, worse. Now, let me sit at home where I've got slow motion. I can replay. With today's streaming, baby, I can hit that pause, rewind, and slow-mo and watch whatever I want. So that's what I'm doing. Joe, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't go to the games anymore. Now, some of that has to do with Snyder. I am a Commanders fan, ex-Redskins fan. I grew up going to the games when they were respectable. But Snyder ruined that team for me. Now I'm back, hesitantly because Snyder is gone, thankfully. But I still don't know if I'm going to the game. They need a new stadium. It's just FedEx Field is atrocious. But when I used to go to a bunch of Virginia Tech games also. I'm simple. Burgers, dogs, chips, dip. And Josh, you're going to like my answer here. Throw in some wings. We got it, man. The wings is where it's at. That's where I go. But yeah, I sit at home, watch Red Zone, my 60-inch TV, same thing. It's more comfortable. It's too expensive.
Joe, I
had kids. I can't do it, man.
I had season tickets to the Washington team back when I was in the Army. Any idea how I could afford those?
Yeah, tell us that story.
It was the Washington Federals of the USFL. The tickets, I was military, so I got a military discount on the tickets. They were like $10 a game. Nice. And it was at the same stadium. I got to see Herschel Walker when he came to town.
Oh, that's awesome.
We had Kelvin Bryant on the Washington team. And being a Michigan guy, the Michigan Panthers were my team. But, I think they had Anthony Carter. They had one of the big receivers out of Michigan on their team. The USFL went after Heisman Trophy winners. They competed for players. They did have good players.
Yeah, 75-minute amateurs. That's funny. That's good.
Iggy, what do
what you chowing on, man?
Yeah, man. I'm Mexican American. I'm proud to be that. So in the food, for me, we're always ripping up our own salsa, man. I make my own salsa almost constantly, and we do a lot of nachos here at the house. I can munch on them. If I get full, I can put them away and come back later. Sometimes we make the tacos with it. And if my wife is feeling really great, she'll make us some enchiladas sometimes on gay days. And I just eat every bit of that. We don't ever have any seconds. I've been to 2 games. I'm a Packers fan, lifelong Packers owner, Greg. What I like to do is brats. And I done brats and sauerkraut. When I went to the Houston game, Aaron Rodgers threw 5 touchdowns in the first half against an undefeated Houston Texans. And then I was at the Des Bryant game, and somebody gave us a hot dog as we went by. But when we actually planned it, we did the brats, we did the sauerkraut. I don't even like sauerkraut, but I had to eat it because just for the Green Bay Packers, it's just part of it. So
you mentioned you're a Packers owner, and probably a lot of the people that listen to the show don't realize Packers fans can buy stock in the Green Bay Packers and be owners.
Yeah.
How much do you own, Iggy?
1 share, which isn't very much, and it's not worth much, and you can't trade it. It's more of a kind of a sentimental memorabilia thing, but
you have ownership.
I do have ownership. Yeah, I have.
Scamming their fans. Just kidding.
Hey, so
JC, what are you eating?
I usually, so a lot of the times I'll go over to my sisters. They usually have parties every weekend on Sundays. So it's usually whatever my brother-in-law's cooking. Sometimes usually it's like some crock pot stuff, or he makes some really good jalapeno poppers, bacon wrapped. He makes, everything on the grill. Pretty much anything you can think of on the grill would be cooking up, but lots of dips, lots of stuff like that. But I like going to the
chicken dip, man.
Yeah,
that's what I was forgetting when I was writing this down. I couldn't think of it, and you said crock pot, and then bam,
yeah,
buffalo chicken dip.
Hot dishes is another thing. That's a Midwest. I guess Midwest is a lot spread out further than I thought. And Ohio does not count as the Midwest. I'll tell you that.
Always the Midwest, dude.
You're Minnesota. Do you know what glühwein is?
Yeah, I know what glühwein is. I've actually had it when I was in Germany.
That's where I first got it. It is a hot wine, basically.
Okay.
It's heated wine.
That actually, yeah.
And it is very good, much better than that Mexican menudo that my family made me eat. I married into a Mexican family, and
there you go.
I hate chewy meat, and menudo is the intestines.
Yeah, if I go to
the intestines,
they have it every Sunday. And I got to say real quick, living in New Mexico and Colorado for over a decade now, the green chilies, when you go to the grocery store, you can roast them. And, man, it's just every football season. It's starting to make my skin rise right now. It's just something about it that's engraved in my mind. Like, I'm drafting my fantasy teams, the chilies being roasted, and then, bam, we got kickoff, dude. So I associate roasted green chili with football season too.
So a shout out to Stephen Hullock again. He mentioned a name I had forgotten, Mike Rozier. If I recall correctly, he was a running back at Nebraska. I could be wrong there, but he was one of the highest paid players his rookie year in the NFL. And when he would run by a bunch of Army guys at the Federal Stadium, we all shouted about, "You haven't made your money yet, Mike." And he actually turned and waved to us. So we're heckling the guy, and he turned and waved. I love the USFL. Those people, they played for fun. Now, they got paid. They did get paid. Donnie Trump broke the bank to get Herschel Walker.
Yep.
So,
it's kind of great. Little history of the USFL for sure.
Oh, I loved it. I did. Now, I can't get behind the XFL or these new leagues. I don't know why. USFL was just fun. The whole experience was fun, and they kept it affordable for, you try to go to an NFL game, you're shelling out $100 for a ticket and probably 50 to 100 for parking. It's not a cheap experience. It's just not.
Yeah, my wife was asking me, because they're selling discounted tickets through her work to the Commanders, and she's like, "You want to go?" And I'm like, "It's still not cheap. Cool, we can go to the game cheap, but once you're there, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
that's
I'm
that's
good.
where
I'll watch
Uber
on my
comes in,
couch.
Joe.
Yeah, we
That's
got
where
light
Uber
rail
comes
here,
in.
too. And here in Minnesota, we got light rail. So, I mean, the nice thing is you can kind of park far away if you want to and get on the light rail and then right up to where the stadium is. So you don't have to worry about
Yeah, I mean,
parking.
we can Metro in. It's a bit of a walk, but yeah, but still, like food prices, beer prices, it's so
Yeah.
expensive once you get there. It's just
Yeah,
not,
but some
it's not worth it.
stadiums actually have the rail station inside the stadium.
That's
You
nice.
get out and you're right
Oh,
there.
that is
You just
nice.
have to go through the gate. Yeah.
I'm just RFK where it was literally like right next to it.
Yeah.
For
yeah.
FedEx Field, it's like a 3/4 mile walk. It's pretty
Yeah.
far.
That's how Rangers games were. I'll learn, and I used to go to a Texas Rangers game a month, and I just started ponying up for the VIP because you literally walk out the stadium, they bring you your car. Otherwise, you were walking about a mile for that parking lot. So,
Guys, we got 7 minutes left in the show.
All right.
So if anybody in the audience has a question about their team that they want answered, put it in the chat now because we will do our best to answer it. Now, one thing I got to tell you, and Joe might disagree with me, I don't believe there are any experts in this hobby. I think there are people that work very hard to get an edge, but even the hardest workers can't predict everything that happens in an NFL game. So if we tell you something that goes counter to what you think about your team, what you should do is use that as a prompt to do more research yourself and then make your own decision. 100%. It's your team.
100%.
And you should get as many opinions as you can. That's why I listen to other podcasts. It's not because I think they know more than me, but they may have picked up a tidbit that I didn't pick up. And I question myself all the time. I'm sure you do too, Joe.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we got guests on our show. We're actually having our pod tonight. It's usually at 9:30 on Thursdays, but we're pushing it back to 10:30 tonight. We're talking with Billy Muzio from Player Profiler and Jared Smola from Draft Sharks. We're jumping through rankings discussions, and I'm sure I'll get convinced to move some guys around my rankings from those two because I know they know their stuff. So I mean, it's happened before. I forget. Was talking with Andrew Cooper about tight ends, and he convinced me Waller should have been ranked higher for me. And I was like, yeah, everything he said was spot on. And so, yeah, I was like, all right. I mean,
I got to tell you,
learn.
Coop,
we can all learn.
Coop is the reason we did the food question. He gave me a call when I'm in the parking lot of the HEB. My wife's inside shopping. He gave me a call. She got so mad at me because I ignored her calls while I was talking to Coop. And he gave me a critique about our show. And he loved the show. But he did say, we did an improv workout this weekend to try to get the transitions better because Coop mentioned the transitions needed work. And that's how he did it when he started. His company brought in an actual improv coach to teach him how to flow the conversation. So, and he mentioned that he likes his show to end with a funny segment. And I was watching Bob Harris on with Howard Bender, and they did a heavy metal draft where they draft a team from the heavy metal band from the 60s and 70s and the 80s and 90s and a heavy metal, gold, platinum, whatever, and a wild card that could be from any era. Heavy metal. Hey, it was fun. I'm not a heavy metal guy, but I could have filled out my team because they included AC/DC, who I've seen live. They included Kiss, who I love, and they included Bon Jovi. There's 3 teams right there. I could have done that.
Yeah. I saw Steven had a question in best O-line running back combo. Saw Joe put Cleveland and Chubb. It's hard for me to argue that Chubb. He's going to be one of my highest ranked running backs for the year. Yeah. I would argue that, we know about the Falcons. They produced 2,000-yard backs in back-to-back seasons named Patterson and Algier behind that offensive line. So I think that Bijan could be good. But I'm going to go with one that I researched a lot, and it's the Houston Texans. You got 3 first-round picks on that line. You got a 2-time Super Bowl winner that blocked for Tom Brady that they just brought over from Tampa Bay. And then they've got a high second-round pick. Let me tell you something. Offensive linemen usually go 4th or 5th, and they're usually pretty good. When you got 3 first-round picks, a second, and some guy that's been blocking for Tom Brady and won 2 Super Bowls, that's going to be a great line. I think Pierce is good to go. He may not be the best, but I think he's going to have another fantastic year, and you can get him in the 4th or 5th round. And Singletary,
get him cheap.
So I think that's a great combination for an offensive line and running back, Steven.
I'm going with my boys in Detroit because of the offensive line. The problem is this preseason showed that the second team sucks. So if anybody gets hurt on that offensive line, it's going to be bad for Detroit. But that starting 5 is very strong. And it all starts with Penei Sewell.
Yeah.
I mean, how many offensive tackles can convert third down passes? Seriously.
I mean,
that was a genius call. It was like tackle eligible in the NFL.
Yeah, he's an athlete. So,
hey, well, next week I want to pump up one of Iggy's people. Nate Markham is a IDP legend. Okay, the guy he does the IDP content for Fantasy and Frames, and he's the host of Shoot the Gap, a podcast. But Nate's back-to-back top 5 IDP rankings finishes at Fantasy Pros. That's pretty hard to do. It really is. And he was a participant with Iggy in the Kings Classic IDP draft. Now Mace was in there too, but he was there as a alternate and a guest drafter. He filled in for someone for a couple picks. But we talk about Gary Davenport too. But Nate's coming back, and we saw him at the Fantasy Football Expo, and I want to invite everybody. Please go to the Expo next year. It will change your life. It really will. It is amazing. You'll get to meet people that literally built this industry from nothing to what it is today, and you're going to find out what I say all the time. There are no bad people in the Fantasy Football Legends category because bad people don't last in this hobby. Now, they may get in and they may use people for a little while, but they eventually get caught and they lose it. You talk about the Bob Harrises and you talk about the Joe Bryants and the Joe Bonds. These guys been doing this for a decade or more. They're all good people. They're all good people.
Yeah, Joe, you deserve
Scott Engel. I love Scotty.
And it's funny here, but you can find Mace's work over at Fantasy Six Pack, as well as with us as well. So please go give them a follow. Go check out their website, like them, and subscribe them on all their social media platforms.
Appreciate it, guys.
And we've got to thank Joe because Joe and I spoke for an hour on the phone one day,
more than that,
and he allowed me to offer Mace's articles to the sports affiliation, as long as we put in a disclaimer that it's produced with permission of Fantasy Six Packs, which I think is fair, more than fair. And it also it allows more people to see Mace's work and see he's a young mind. I mean, he's new at this, and he is gaining an awful lot of respect in this industry. You should have seen the people come up to him at the expo, and it wasn't just the girls. Although he did attract a few of those too. And I'm telling on him, I hope his wife doesn't get mad at him. He was ever the gentleman. But people knew who he was. Once Iggy's the same way. You're Iggy? I know your stuff. Okay, so JC, I didn't really see anybody know you or me. It's like these guys are the rock stars because they do IDP or something.
It's a new thing. And yeah, JC and I are both wearing our shirts. I got my shirt. JC got our bags up here. It's just fun.
Now that black one, I bought that for $5 as we were leaving. A black one like that. And I didn't have $5 and they didn't have change, so I just gave them $20. I didn't realize that shirt is a 2012 shirt. A 2022 shirt.
Yeah, that's
2022. But I love the colors. I like that one better than the blue one, to be honest.
This is a little bit Chargers blue for me, but that's okay. And we wanted to give Bob Lung a shout out. Just thanks for throwing that all together, Bob, and making a special place where Greg and I can meet and like all of us can interact together and just have a great time. So Bob Lung, we love you. I just want to say that.
And next week we'll be back on Spaces.
Yeah, we'll be back.
Assuming it works. We had a lot of trouble getting it up. And Joe, I want to thank you for sticking around.
Yeah, that was pretty rough. So
like I said, I've had this set up for like 3 days down in my basement. My wife's killing me. This table's got to go after tonight. It's put back in the storage for a week. But I've had a lot of stuff going on this week, so this was already set up. This was perfect. Like I said, I'll be back on in a couple hours on my own show. So I'm ready to rock.
Go check it out, everybody. Thank you for all.
That's it. Tune in next week, 7:00 Eastern, 6:00 Central, Thursday night, with Nate Markham and the first real games.
Absolutely. Get those lineups right. You only got 1 week. Make sure you're looking at it right. You don't want to sit around and wait. That's all I got.